Welcome to the student segment of the Legislature Today. I'm Malia and this is Emma Browning. We're here in our studio at our Capitol building.
Today we're here to interview Steve Harrison, former clerk of the West Virginia House of Delegates. He's agreed to tell us about his time in the legislature.
How are you today, Steve?
I am doing well. It's great to be here.
Good to have you. We just have a few questions today. Our first one is, did you ever think that you would be a part of this political world?
I first got interested in politics. I did not think this when I was your age. When I was in high school, I was thinking more about sports and I wasn't thinking about politics, but I went to Brown University and started taking some political science classes and got interested in maybe running for office someday. Didn't know when that would be, and started a career in banking. Wanted to come back to West Virginia, started a career in banking. Read an article about Delegate John Overington where he had spoken to a group, and I liked a lot of the things he had to say. And I met with him in late 1991, wanting to know how I could get more involved, and he encouraged me to run. Well, I was just 25 years old and didn't think I would be running at that time, but they had just done redistricting and created a 4-member district where I lived with no incumbents. So I ended up running, getting elected at the age of 26 in 1992, and I was the second youngest member of the House of Delegates that term.
How was it? What was it like to be one of the younger people in the legislature? Was it intimidating, or how did you feel?
I really wasn't intimidated. I was excited, very excited to be there. Really couldn't believe it at first when I got elected. And we had a few younger members. There were, I think, 4 of us in our 20s, a couple that were almost 30, and a couple of us that were in our mid-20s. But in the House of Delegates, there's such a variety of ages and occupations that I don't think it took me long to hit the ground running. So.
Did you see a change from the legislature back then up to now? How have you seen West Virginia's legislature kind of had a switch or anything like that?
A tremendous change. When I was elected, I was in the minority party, which was the Republicans at that time, and we had 21 members in the House. And to see it, and we thought at some time we might take the majority, but my whole 10 years in the House, my 5 terms in the House, we were always heavily in the minority. When I was in the Senate, we were in the minority. And to see the majorities switch so dramatically, that's been a huge change, because the House had been majority Democrat for 84 years. And to see it change, it's a major change from when I first became a delegate.
Is there any misconception that you think a lot of people might have about the legislature?
One of the misconceptions, and I've noticed it recently, is people will often say, well, why is the legislature spending all their time on these issues or this issue? And really, the legislature, each year, they will pass in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 bills in an average year. So they're spending their time on a lot of different issues. And really, a lot of issues affect other issues. So just because they may be debating one issue, that doesn't mean that they're not dealing with other issues in committees, because there are so many bills that they pass. And so that is one of the misconceptions, is even though certain issues may get more coverage in the media, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing they're dealing with.
Yeah, it's very important to do your own research.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did your daily job, your daily life look like as a clerk?
There was no typical day, but there were typical seasons. During session, you would spend a lot of your time on the floor, and as clerk, I would be helping process the bills. We had to make sure that all the bills were processed correctly. And then my last few years as clerk, I did the reading as well. So I was doing that on the floor, and you could spend long, long hours on the floor each day during session. And then it would take us probably 3 to 4 hours after the session adjourned to finish up the journal and the other things for the day. So if they were getting done late of the evening in the latter part of session, we may not get out of here till midnight, 1 o'clock. I think 3 o'clock's probably about the latest we ever went. So your days were very unpredictable. Now out of session, we had regular hours then, the other 9 months or so of the year, and we would be processing the paperwork, doing the bound journal, putting the acts of the legislature together, those nicely bound books that you see on shelves throughout the Capitol.
Great. What's the best advice you could give for someone who wants to run for House of Delegates?
I think the best advice is do not be intimidated. Don't think that you have to be a millionaire to run. Don't think that you have to come from a political family. If you get started at the lower offices, maybe a county office or even the House of Delegates, if you're willing to put in the work and go knock on doors, go out and hold signs, go out and meet people, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money. When I got elected, I was regularly outspent, but I would go out and work and I knew people and I would put in the legwork. When I got elected to the state Senate, I was outspent about 2.5 to 1, but I still won. So you don't always have to have the most money. Now, when you get to the higher offices, statewide office, it's hard. Yes, it's hard then to run without a lot of money or a lot of backing. But at the local level and the legislative level, if you're willing to put in the work, you can get elected even at a young age if the time is right and you put in enough work.
Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. I think it helped us a lot in learning what you did, and I think you had a very interesting career. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very inspiring.
Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Yeah.
And I just encourage anyone who is interested in the process to follow it closely and maybe even consider running yourself someday, even if you're young.
Thank you so much. That was our interview with Steve Harrison. I'm Malia, and
I'm Emma Browning.
thank you so much. Join you next week.